Hello, welcome. My name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My main thing is helping you as a side hustler, as a solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Welcome to the channel. If you're catching me on YouTube, it's at youtube.com/BrownNaven. If you're catching me on there, you probably already know that. That's my regular show that I do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this point, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The 11:30 ones, the Wednesday ones, cannot get my tongue is like totally tied today. I think I've been talking too much. 11:30 a.m. shows, 11:30 a.m. shows on Wednesdays. They're always live like this one. I've been coming to y'all for like 3 months, something like that. Need to pop some champagne or something. And then every Monday and Friday, I have a recorded episode, which is more like a 10-minute nugget that's focused on how you can kind of level up. It's almost like a free coaching practice. So please take advantage of that. You can learn more about me at DamonBrown.net. And my new book, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. You might notice something different. It is now available on hardcover. Yay! I haven't done a hardcover book. I did a book called Playboy's Greatest Covers. People really supported it. It was actually translated into French. Guess the French like Playboy. And so I did that coffee table book. If I would have thought about it, I would have pulled it out because in my bookcase. I did that book almost 10 years ago. And so, which is like awesome. And I love to be able to connect with y'all in that way. This is different. This feels different, where it's like a wonderful experience to be able to have a hardcover of this. This is actually available exclusively through Amazon. And hold on one second, I'm having some connection issues. I think it's something in the planets right here. Hold on a second. There we go. I think we lost connection. There we go. Let's see if we can get that again. There we go. We should be connecting back on there. Yeah, it looks like we're having some issues with the Amazon connection stream. So I apologize to y'all there checking it out on Amazon. I'll try to get back on there for you. Join live. There it is. There we go. Return to live stream. All right. There you go. Sorry. Again, having technical issues here. There we go. Let's try that one more time. No. Yeah, it looks like we're having some issues here. So it looks like Amazon's not quite working right now, just because of some tech issues. So, but here's the thing, is that you can go ahead and grab the hardcover of the Amazon book, Built From Now, over on Amazon. I'll throw up the link in a second. The name of the book is Built From Now, and you can get it on audiobook if you want to listen to my voice. We have it on Amazon Kindle at amazon.com. I'm sorry, amzn.to/ all of that. 35 capital G, Q, capital H, capital S, capital Y. It's available on Apple Books and Apple Audiobooks. And we have it from the indie folks. And lastly, we have it from my own website. It's actually an independently published book. It's being distributed through Amazon, but it's independently published. And so you can check it out over at DamonBrown.net if you want signed copies of that, as well as my previous books, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and take a second to see if we can get the Amazon live stream up. So bear with me for a second because I don't want to leave anybody out of the conversation. Let's see. And do that. There we go. And then, yeah, so it looks like we had some issues with the live stream. So for the folks on Amazon, maybe what I'll try to do is do it over again or do a different live stream for y'all and go from there. And then add products. And then, unfortunately, I won't be able to add all the products on there, but at least I'll be able to have you guys be part of the conversation. So give me one moment. Oh, you know what? I actually won't be able to do that. So I apologize to the folks that are on Amazon Live. For some reason, the connection got disconnected. So I have to do a replay for y'all later on. So again, my apologies. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching it live. Glad to have y'all with me. All right. If you're liking the YouTube channel, be sure and subscribe. There's always new episodes coming out, again, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I just talked to Will Lucas at Afrotech. It's probably the biggest platform for African Americans interested in or connected to the tech industry and it's just a whole different space. And I got a chance to talk with him on Monday, which is great. If I would have thought about it, I would have threw the link up there. But if you go to youtube.com/BrownDamon, subscribe, I actually have highlights of our conversation that are going to be going live again Friday at 11:30 a.m. as part of my regular show. It's 11:30 a.m. as you're watching right now. So 11:30 a.m. West Coast time, because I'm based in Las Vegas. All right, so let's get into it. How to make independent money. I was trying to figure out how to title this. And even address it, but I think it was something worth addressing. One of the challenges I think we have when we do want to do something that nourishes the world, again, as I talk about in the Build From Now, one of the challenges that I think we have is that we're not sure how to fund ourselves. And funding, when it comes from an outside entity, sometimes can change our mission and definitely can change our focus. And it could delay us actually serving our consumers the way, or customers or community, I use the word community, in a way that hits them immediately. For instance, I own my own publishing imprint. Build From Now is the 7th book on it that I've done in the past 4 years. People buy the book. I don't get a book advance, right? Because I don't have a traditional publisher. So I invest the money into coming out with the book. And then you, as the community, say, yeah, I love this book, or no, this isn't what we wanted. And so I get that automatic feedback. Now, of course, there's a financial aspect of it where if you were to buy, say, the hardcover of Build From Now, majority of the money would come my way because I did it independently. But understanding that there's a sacrifice with that where I take the risk up front to actually get the book published. Not to mention, the days, months, particularly during a pandemic, that I spent writing the book. And so there's something gratifying about doing something on your own and then getting money from it because you're getting feedback from the market. No disrespect to VCs or folks that fund things, because sometimes you do need that. There's a place for that. If you have funding coming from this direction, it's easy to not think about how you should be making money from this direction. So what I mean by independent money is getting money on your own. You don't have someone writing you a check. As far as an employer, you don't have VC funding or any other type of funding. You don't have a savings account that you're pulling on. Like, you're just creating something. The market is feeding you, and then you're creating more stuff based on that. So that's the energy of this conversation. I want to highlight some books that might inform that and help you get to where you need to get to. All right. So the first one, and shout out to Purple Fluorite / Raymond Johnson for this recommendation. Man, Purple Fluorite actually did the theme song to Bring Your Worth, which is named my imprint and name of my previous book. You see it behind my head somewhere, but it's right here. But it's the name of my imprint, my book that came out a few years ago. They did the official theme song. So if you end up catching the YouTube channel, if you're watching it on there, youtube.com/BrownDamon, you hear the theme song in the background. That's Purple Fluorite. We actually came out with the theme song to celebrate the book's launch 2 years ago. And then it's available on all the major music platforms. They actually recommended this book to me. It's called The Death of an Artist. I always forget the author's name. My apologies. Sorry, I have to go and dig up the book because I have it on my Kindle. It is phenomenal. The Death of an Artist talks about, if I can say this in a respectful way, how it's harder than ever it's easier than ever to get out there and get your product out there. Again, I have a publishing imprint. This might have not been possible for me financially or otherwise 10 years ago. It definitely would not have been possible 20 years ago. I know people who are independently publishing 2 decades ago, including some family members. It was a whole different world, whole different thing. Now I have that opportunity, which is great. So the gates are open. As I said in a recent interview, the gatekeepers are gone. The gates are open. The problem is that everyone can come in there. And because there's so many people in there, and because there's a demonetization, which I love that word. It's a new word for me. Demonetization of our craft as far as what people are expecting to pay. Then there's a bunch of people that can get in, but how many people can actually make a living? This is real talk. If you're thinking about going independent, a side hustler, a solopreneur, I've done all those. If you're even dabbling in it, if you want to be full-time like I am with independent, you have to read this book. Like, this book is like gospel. I wish I would have written the book. It's one of those books. I think it just came out over the past year. Again, Purple Fluoride put me on it. Thanks again, because I was up late reading this book about 2 weeks ago, and Purple Fluoride kept shooting me quotes to it, and I was like, "Why are you sending me all these quotes? I think these are great quotes, but why are you sending me quotes from this book? That usually doesn't happen. What are you doing?" And then, of course, I started reading the book, and I'm shooting them quotes like, "Hey, did you see this passage?" There's a lot of nuances to it. This is a great primer, and as I talked with Purple Fluoride about, you can look at it in a cynical viewpoint, particularly on the first look through, particularly if you're not in the game yet, where you're like, all right, the gatekeepers are gone, but nobody's making money, right? Music is literally free now, right? You probably have a Spotify account or Apple Music account or a Tidal account or whatever. So people are getting an aggregate amount of money. You know, I'm not paying 99 cents for a single, or back in the day, I used to pay $3 for a maxi single. I'm showing my age. A maxi single that had 4 versions of the song on there. You know, they got all that money. Now it's like, I stream a song, I listen to it once, they get, what, a quarter of a penny? Probably less than that. You know, and the people that are really getting off on streaming are the Drakes, the Kendrick Lamars, the J. Coles, the, what's her name, Taylor Swifts, the Beyoncés. And we can listen to this discussion 5 years from now. The names might be changed a little bit, but the game will probably be the same. If you're going to get into trying to get independent money, you have to read this book, because you want to know what format you're going into and what it feels like. All right. So I highly recommend the book. It sounds cynical, and part of it is, but you have to understand the game, and then you can decide what level you want to play it at. You might want to do a side hustle where you keep your day job. You might become a solopreneur like I was, where you start your own startup. And actually, I sold my startup and got paid off of that. You could become a full-time freelancer like I've been for several years for Playboy, the New York Post, and other guys. And then I also have my own coaching practice. My YouTube channel is actually part of my financial strategy, because people subscribe and then there's advertising. So there's different ways to do it. This will tell you some of the ropes of the game. Another book I recommend, which if you're familiar with this program, I mentioned it a month or two ago. It's Company of One by Paul Jarvis. Paul and I have gotten to know each other, but I was actually into the book or into his work well before he and I met, when I did an interview I interviewed him for my Inc. magazine column over at inkdamonbrown.com. You can find a link to it over in the show notes with YouTube. But anyway, Company of One. It talks about how, if you read the subtitle, while staying small is the next big thing for business. In other words, you don't have to be the next Google. You don't have to be the next whatever. I actually can throw up a link right now to the highlights of the conversation that I had with Will Lucas of Afrotech. Again, that happened 2 days ago. There's a direct link to it that I can shoot in here so you can watch it live. But there's also highlights that I'm going to be having exclusively on my YouTube channel. I'm going to throw that in here for you. So if you want to see highlights of the Afrotech conversation, they'll be live on Friday. I just threw those in the chat. Here you go. So highlights of the Afrotech conversation, that's the link right there. If you watch on YouTube, you just click the link. If you're a subscriber, you'll get a notification on Friday at 11:30 a.m. my time over on the West Coast. But that's what we talked about, is that you don't have to be the next Google. You don't have to be the next Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, whatever, Slack, whatever. You don't have to be that. You can be whatever you want to be on your particular metric. I have 2 little kids at home. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. So there are apps I want to create. There's things I want to make. There's other books I want to write. But I know how much bandwidth I have. In fact, that's the argument of Build From Now, is how to know your power, see your abundance, and nourish the world. Again, available in hardcover now. But talking about the 4 resources that we all have: focus, agility, time, and energy. I happen to use focus, agility, time, and energy. That's a framework of my coaching practice. You can learn more about my one-on-one coaching at damonbrown.net. But no matter what framework you use, you only have so many resources. So me spinning up the next Google doesn't make any sense right now. Me doing a small app, maybe. Me releasing a book, it's my 25th book. So I know the routine with books. Cool, I can do that. You know, so there's details like that that Paul's really good at. Let me throw the link back up there. details that Paul's really good at. And so he talks about it with his own business, which, he's making good money with his business, but he's deciding to keep it small. As we shelter in place, we're approaching a year on that here in America. We really need to rethink how we're working from home, where we're putting our energy into, what kind of business we want to have. That idea of work-life balance has just crashed, right? Because we're on all the time. I just had a conversation with Cal Newport. He has a new book called World Without Email. I hope to share some content with you soon about that. But we talked about that, where it's so overwhelming right now. Maybe being small and actually getting rid of stuff instead of trying to become the next Google is a smart move. Nothing wrong with having big goals. Just have them within the resources that you have. That's what I recommend as a coach and in my own journey. Company of One really gets into that. So again, highly recommend the book. Also recommend Off the Clock by Laura Vanderkam. I think I have a copy. Oh, I know right here. I love having a decent bookcase. You just reach over there. Off the Clock, Laura Vanderkam. You've heard me mention her many times before if you caught the show. It has to do with time management. That's what she's known for. I'm known for supporting and helping non-traditional entrepreneurs. She's known for time management. She's a friend, she's a peer, she's my parallel in that world. And we have some overlap because she's into time management again. So understanding how you're going to manage your time. If you really want your independent money and Earn Your Leisure, a really popular podcast run by two African-American men, probably a little bit younger than me. I love the work that they're doing, so shout out to them. It's called Earn Your Leisure. They've only been out for about 2 years, and they have this ridiculous following. This had Gary Vee on their show. I think they had Mark Cuban on their show. I think that was last week. They're killing it. And they have this great discussion about how we look at money. And when they were growing up, and I can see that for some members of my family and friends too, they would always trade time for money. In other words, I'm going to put in another shift. I was raised in Michigan. So originally from New Jersey, but raised in Michigan. So I was all around folks who had parents or siblings or whatever who were working in the auto industry, so because we weren't too far from Detroit. So it's like, I'm going to do a second shift, or I'm going to do a third shift because they were doing all-nighters and get some extra money to pay down the mortgage or to have my kid go to school or whatever, to get some school clothes in August. They were saying that was the case for a lot of us, particularly those of us in African-American communities, which my friends were. But getting out of that mindset of trading time for money and saying, I'm going to create this one thing and it's going to multiply. I talk about that in my book, The Passive Writer. If you go to Amazon, you can find that out, or you can also grab a copy at damonbrown.net. But it's called The Passive Writer. I did it with my good friend, Jeanette Hurt, and talking about how writers can create one thing and they have it multiply. My my first book in my imprint became a bestseller. That was Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur Trilogy. This led to me becoming a coach. Like literally without this book, I'm not sure if I'd be a coach. And then led to speaking engagements. It led to later on to TED Talks. I already did TED Talks before I did this, but after I did this, I did 2 more. Like it led to all these things, but I wrote this book once. I'm going to do a revision soon, but it's written. This book's been out for almost 4 years. It's written already. And so finding ways to multiply what you got. Off the Clock really gets into that. I have a brief interview in here where she interviews me, and I also share some of that wisdom in Built From Now. So there's a short passage that's quoting that, and some of that actually quotes me. So it's kind of a reverb there. But either way, grab Built From Now, but also grab Off the Clock. Again, love Laura's work. She's doing amazing stuff, and she's really trying to make an impact on the world in how we handle our time. All right, so I'd also recommend Entrepreneurial StrenthsFinder, which I am not on top of things today. There it is. Again, nice thing of having an office. It's by Jim Clifton, and I believe it's his father or an earlier generation from maybe his uncle was actually the founder of StrengthsFinder. And so if you're in the coaching world, shout out to my mom, Bernadette Johnson. If you're in the coaching world, particularly in the corporate setting of it, then you know what StrengthsFinder is. And this book is like short. Like this is really the book. Like the book is really like this much. I read on like a plane ride. The second half though, which you can already see me, have the dog ears. The second half of it though, and the real value of it is you actually having is you having the actual StrengthsFinder quiz. Sorry, blanked my mind there. Having the StrengthsFinder quiz. I call it a quiz, but it's actually closer to assessment. I have a quiz at buildfromnowquiz.com. They have an assessment where they have like millions of research scientists working on it, but it tells you where your strengths are. You know, if you want to get this independent money, you have to know what you're about. For instance, obviously, I love communicating. It could be written words. It could be speaking. I love communicating. So my business is predicated on me publishing books, have my own book imprint. It's me coaching people one-on-one. And if you're coaching people, particularly in a digital setting, you have to talk. You also have to be able to listen, even though you might not be face-to-face, particularly post-pandemic, obviously. So we have those details. So there's all these different things, all these different nuances that come from you knowing who you are. If you know any of my work, particularly with the Build From Now predecessor, Bring Your Worth, you know how big I am on knowing who you are and what you're not. And knowing what you're not is just as important. For instance, I'm not really big on the sales front. I love selling things. I love making money. I'm not going to be the roving salesman. I'm not going to be Willie Lomax. Like, that's not going to happen. It's not. I could do that. I have done that. I have done door-to-door sales. Great learning experience as far as what I don't want to do. But I am happy to communicate. I'm happy to serve. And I serve and communicate. Now I'm realizing to the point where I don't have to sell it. I don't have to tell you, go buy Build From Now. I can give you enough value as a communicator, as a coach, as a public speaker, as a YouTuber, etc., where you're like, oh my gosh, Damon's stuff is so valuable, I'm gonna go grab it. That discussion's in the Entrepreneurial StrengthsFinder. And I got the book relatively late. I think the StrengthsFinder had been around for a decade or two. I didn't get it until when I was doing entrepreneurship in residence over in Toledo. Shout out to Toledo Library. I was an entrepreneur in residence there in fall 2019. And I grabbed Entrepreneurial StrengthsFinder on my long plane rides between here in Las Vegas back to Toledo to do the events for the fall. And it really just solidified stuff that I already knew. So no matter where you're at in your cycle, where you want to get independent money but you're not sure, or you're like myself, you're already getting independent money and you want to sharpen up your game, check out the book. This one is a classic for me, man. It was a game changer back in the day. Dojo Wisdom for Writers by Jennifer Lawler. Shout out to Jennifer. I hope you're doing well over in Kansas. She was actually a mentor from afar because I didn't really know her, but I got to know her a little bit later on. And this was one of the first writing books that I got that really changed the way that not only how I looked at writing. I have 2 degrees in journalism, so it's like my writing was already okay. But as far as how to structure things and the right mindset, it could be called Zen wisdom for writers. She happens to be, I'm not sure if she's still involved, but she was very much involved in martial arts at that time and all kinds of belts, you know, and so it happens to be Dojo wisdom, but it could easily be called Zen wisdom. It reminds me a lot of Pema Chodron's book, Uncomfortable with Uncertainty, which if you've been watching this at all or tuning in, you know what's up with that. Highly recommend that book as well. But it's like, I think it's 100. Yeah, it's 100 different little chapters that talk about the practice. And this might remind you of Seth Godin and his new book called The Practice. But this is about 2 decades before that. And what I love about Jennifer's book is that it actually applies to things other than writing. So if you're in any type of, or want to get involved in any type of creative endeavor, check out this book. Again, it's classic. She has a 2nd edition out. I have the 1st edition. It is dusty. I think her 2nd edition is done independently. That's the link that I have here. You know about the independent game, so make sure she gets her independent money. But it's a short, cute, beautiful book. Again, it's dog-eared. I don't keep all my books. I kept this one. It's about 2 decades old. Lastly, the classic, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And this book talks about how we get stuck. If you're going to get this independent money as a independent music producer and creator, like my good friend Purple Fluoride, who did the Bring Your Worth anthem or theme, or if you're going to be an independent consultant, creator, and entrepreneur like I've been, you're going to get stuck along the way. You're going to have rough times. It's going to be moments where it's just going to be hard. And it's kind of part of the game. And Pressfield's book really, and my dog-eared copy is somewhere around here, but it's almost as short as Jennifer Lawler's book, almost as short as my book, Bring Your Worth. Like, it's a short book, and it just kicks you right in the gut in a good way, where if you're feeling unmotivated, which you will have those moments. I'm a very ambitious person. I don't have an issue with motivation. If I want to do something, I have to hold myself back. I just have that kind of energy and that intensity. And even for me, I have those moments where I'm like, I don't know if I can go on, or maybe it's a sign that I should stop, and so forth. Pressfield allows you to separate anxiety towards perfectionism, which, if you know my TED Talks, again, you can catch them at youtube.com/BrownDamon. If you know my TED Talks, sorry, I can't find my YouTube channel. There you go. You can subscribe right there. If you know my TED Talks, if you know any other stuff that I've worked on, even any of my books, including Build From Now, the new one, you know how we can get caught up in that cycle of perfectionism. We also get caught up in that cycle of shame and guilt, where we feel like we should be at this level, but we're really at this level. His book is Gentle Reminder, and let me put it back up there. His book is Gentle Reminder that you're going to suck when you first start. That's become commonplace in quite a few creativity books, including mine that have come out. His book came out like 25 years ago. And all those books, all those ideas, a lot of them hark back to this one. This is like the blueprint. Julia Cameron, Bird by, and what's her name with Bird by Bird, Anne Lamott, like his is among that canon. Like those 3-4 books, this is one of them. Highly recommend it. It's a little book. It probably costs $12 now. Just grab it. If you don't get it now, if you read it and you don't get it now, as far as I understand it, you'll get it later. So phenomenal, phenomenal book. All right, so let's start from the top. Those are my best ones as far as with indie, getting your indie money on. There's a lot of discussions that we can have about that, but we can save that for another time. But put these books into your library to start. Death of an Artist. I'm sorry, I forget the author's name, but you can look it up on there. Company of One by Paul Jarvis. Off the Clock, amazing book, Laura Vanderkam. Entrepreneurial StrenthsFinder, excellent book as far as figuring out what your strengths are. Dojo Wisdom for Writers, fascinating book by Jennifer Lawler, who's became a friend later. And The War of Art, You Need It in Your Canon. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can catch the highlights of my Afrotech conversation. We talked about independent money. So you want to go deeper into the game, this is a way to do it. And remember to take your free quiz over at buildfromnowquiz.com based on the new book, which is available in hardcover. Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. And lastly, if you want to learn more about me, come over to damonbrown.net. And almost lastly, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel as soon as I find the link at youtube.com/BrownDamon. Don't miss the excitement. I am losing my voice. That's a sign to go. Remember that you can always bring your worth, and you can always build from now. Take care.